This is my first One Play Wednesday video of this week. I usually try to make these play concepts or explorations be in the 5 to 8 minute range. This one may go on a little bit longer. We're, of course, talking about the 4th and 1 sweep pitch from St. Brown to Gibbs that many people have mistakenly referred to as an option. Do I think that St. Brown could theoretically keep this football? Sure. But to me, this is all designed to get the football to Jahmyr Gibbs and let him run to the pylon and beat anyone. In this case, it's Ravens outside linebacker Mike Green. We'll let it flow through one time so you guys can see it. The pitch, normally in football, the way people draw stuff up on paper, you'll see a dashed or dotted line like that, and that indicates the pitch. Mike Green is the guy isolated here against St. Brown and Gibbs. I don't really believe this is an option unless the Lions have come out and said that it is. I wanted to let that flow through one time because I see some some very similar characteristics, I should say, to a patented fourth and short play that Detroit has used in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's, of course, split back sweep. I've covered it in video form many times. I believe this is a 4th and 1 in 2022 against the Minnesota Vikings, and we've got St. Brown on the right, and, of course, Jamaal Williams on the left. He's going to be the real fullback. I have down and distance unknown. I think when the ball actually gets out to the left sideline and you guys can see it, we'll be able to confirm that it's a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2. Usually split back sweep has the fullback / tight end cutting the edge defender. In this case, it's actually Zadarius Smith, ironically, and then the left guard pulling and leading for the halfback. Here, Ben Johnson elected to use St. Brown as the halfback. And then he gets out behind the pulling left guard, and you can see that, it's a great situation. It's a 2-on-1, essentially, for a great athlete like St. Brown or Jahmyr Gibbs and some of the other variations that I'll show you. But why does this work? Because you're normally getting a 3 technique for the tackle to down block on, and the fullback / tight end is normally going to go and cut, dive at the outside leg of the edge defender while you're getting the wide receiver pinned down on the inside linebacker. So it's an absolute situation where they're able to outflank a defense with a sweep play. You may recall that the Lions scored on this against the Eagles in week 1 of 2022, and then lo and behold, at the end of the season that year in the Super Bowl, Kansas City used the same exact play on a 4th and 1 near midfield against the Eagles to get a conversion. Multiple variations of it. I looked for a couple of today that were my favorites, and I couldn't find the one against the Chargers. Actually, there were 2. This one has St. Brown and Gibbs in the backfield. For a moment, act like St. Brown is not there. Try to ignore him, if you will. This is the split back setup, and usually the fullback / tight end is a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's not getting the ball anyway. Everybody knows that. So calling it split backs is a little bit unusual. I would really say that tight end is more so like a wing. But from a setup standpoint, he's in a 3-point stance down below the offensive line, perhaps trying to hide from them. St. Brown, this is a 4th and 1, I believe, week 2 of 2023. It could be the playoff game, but I might be wrong. In any case, St. Brown's going to go opposite of Gibbs' flow, and this one ends up being a huge gain. Same dynamic exists, right? There's the guard. In this case, ironically, it's Glasgow out leading in front. This is actually week 2, 2024. Because I just noticed that Zeitler's on the field, so my apologies for that. But it's the same place from a split backs alignment. Look at Goff and the steps that he takes to hand it off. So in terms of this 4th and 1 against the Ravens, that they use the pitch or / option, if you will, Goff and St. Brown and Gibbs, for that matter, have used those steps before. And in fact, they've used it from the shotgun. This is a 1st and goal. There's the tight end. Technically, I would have considered him a fullback on the previous iterations because Goff would be under center and Gibbs would be the halfback. But you can see the tight end is certainly a whole lot wider than he has been on these previous plays than the one for Jamaal Williams. You got motion across by Jameson Williams. And then here's the blocking scheme. Again, tight end Brock Wright is going to try to go get the edge defender, cut him, knock him down, get him on the ground. And then the left guard pulling and leading out in front for Gibbs. It's a 1-yard touchdown run. I believe that helped them take a 7-3 lead in the first quarter, or maybe early second. So let's get back to the play sequence that we're talking about against the Ravens from this Monday night. First of all, it's a 3rd and 1 in the second quarter. This is the culmination or near the culmination of that 18-play drive. The Lions are going to take a 14-7 lead. A lot going on here. From a personnel standpoint, it's 13 personnel. So they haven't given the Ravens a tip to what might be coming from the personnel group. So credit to John Morton and Dan Campbell for that. Basically, these other plays I've shown you were not 13 personnel, and they give you a 13 personnel look, number 1. Number 2, I think there's 2 plays called here. This is, of course, Jared Goff's quarterback sneak. meaning I think if the Ravens are in an alignment with their interior tackles and maybe their inside linebackers up, that Goff is going to check to an actual running play. I think it's possible. I don't think the other play called is possibly the sweep pitch where St. Brown ends up pitching it to Gibbs, but it is set up here. The same dynamic exists. The difference is this defensive end, Tavius Robinson, is in a 5, so Sewell would have to reach him. He would have to go get him. It's possible that is the second play they have called in the huddle. I don't believe it is for this situation. I believe they saved that for a 4th and 1 when they absolutely needed a yard to gain. Finally, here is the aforementioned play. Again, I would consider it very similar to a split-back sweep. So the way that would work is you would have a fullback / tight end whose feet would be located here and here, and that fullback or tight end would be responsible for cutting Mike Green. Additional to that, the right guard would pull and lead. For the halfback, in this case, it's St. Brown. That's not the play that's run, right? First of all, it's to the wrong side. Normally, the Lions do this to their left. The defense is right. So kind of like, thank you, John Morton and Dan Campbell, for showing us that you do actually practice the sweep play with the same steps to your right. So let's look at Goff's steps. Same exact steps as what we showed to Jahmyr Gibbs against the Bucs in week 2 last year. I think it was week 2. I might have my weeks wrong there. The only difference is, obviously, Goff has got the tip of the ball pointed up in the air. Why? It's so St. Brown can control the ball and then pitch it using the option pitch technique. So the film is only 720p here, so if it's not coming through good enough for you guys to understand, I apologize for that. But he's basically getting his thumb ended up pointing at the running back. In this case, pointing at Gibbs. The ball is in the air. A lot going on here. Sewell has closed off Roquan Smith. Easy touchdown for Jahmyr Gibbs. The idea is, I think, worst case scenario, Jahmyr Gibbs has got to outrun the edge defender to the pylon, which I think he's going to do in 99% of the cases. So I don't think this is really an option play. St. Brown does, upon taking the handoff for a moment, look at Mike Green, but I think on the freeze frame where I am now, he's already started to look to Gibbs to pitch the football. That's just my opinion. I don't think it's an actual option play. Beautiful setup. I think, and I've said this in film study videos before, that the Lions offense has periods where certain guys, a core group of 6 or 8 guys, are over practicing all of these plays. So they're sharp. They're just part of the regular offense. I mean, really, so that when they have to execute them, especially in a critical moment like this, no one's nervous about it. Certainly not St. Brown. Like I said with the title of the video, they're in good hands by using him as the pivot to take the ball and then pitch it back to Gibbs. He executed it perfectly. Same play from the end zone angle. Obviously, that's St. Brown. I contend to you that if it was a sweep play to the Lions' left or right on the screen right now, that St. Brown would be located with his feet in the same area over here, or if it was Gibbs who was running the sweep. That's not obviously the play that they run. Here's the thing that I like about it. Radledge has to reach the defensive tackle, Broderick Washington, right? And then Sewell was going to combo. He's not worried about the defensive end, Mike Green, at all. He's the guy who's being, quote, optioned, or the guy who should react to the sweep. And that's the thing that I think is the really exquisite design here. Roquan Smith and Mike Green, one of those two guys should always be dealing with not getting outflanked by the running back, especially a goal line situation, short yardage situation, right? You don't want to just have the guy run a swing pass, quarterback throw it out there to him. But because of the sweep action to St. Brown, every football player that plays defense is seeing that. Roquan Smith, Mike Green are both seeing the ball handed off. It's almost like Jahmyr Gibbs is the blind spot. No one's paying attention to him, at least on the Ravens defense at this point in time. They were certainly about 1.5 seconds later because St. Brown pitched it. Gibbs runs into the end zone. I think it's an amazing play for a lot of reasons. I believe that it's a variation off the split-back sweep. It's certainly a different blocking scheme, right? If it was split-back sweep to the Lions' right or left on the screen, so you'd be talking about St. Brown getting the ball going that way. You get a pin-down block by Sewell and then pull out like that with the guard, but you got a problem. Nobody to block the edge defender, so they really can't run the sweep to this side from this play because there's no one to go block down to the outside to basically dive at the outside edge or outside leg, of the edge defender. The Lions are ultimately prepared for these moments. The execution with the ball pointing up, just amazing. Someone on Twitter, I think it's Dan Casey, and I may have the name wrong. If I do, my apologies. He's got a huge social media following, does a great job of sharing plays all week, but in fact shares them during the games as well. He pointed out that Dan Campbell, I believe, is actually on the field for the Dallas Cowboys when they ran this same play in a fourth and short situation back during his playing days. I think it's pretty amazing that Detroit continues to execute these different schemes, these different play calls, if you will, in critical situations. In this case, is a 4th and 1, first play of the fourth quarter, helped the Lions take a 28-21 lead. Were they to run something else, something normal, and not get the first down, it's entirely possible that they don't get the touchdown. In fact, the Ravens get the ball back. Maybe the Ravens take the lead and win. The point is, Detroit trusts St. Brown. They trust Goff, obviously, in these moments. And I think they've got dedicated periods to go over these plays, these concepts, and basically put the ball in the best hands possible and have a 99.8 or 99.9% chance that they're going to execute things. I have done a lot of the split-back sweep videos over the years, perhaps too much. If you're a Lions fan, you're more than welcome to let me know in the comment section. I think this one's related to it. Maybe not a brother, a cousin, if you will, who maybe lives next door. This was a great play call by John Morton. I think it's connected to Dan Campbell in many ways, and Ben Johnson as well utilized it to great effect. So many teams across the NFL use this concept now, the split-back sweep, and Detroit here added a variation of it and outflanked the Ravens for a critical go-ahead touchdown. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number one. Number two, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this exploration of what I believe is two related concepts, the split-back sweep and then this sweep pitch from St. Brown to Gibbs, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.